Your favorite team is probably eliminated from the Overwatch League starting this week. Well, not from the league entirely, at least not yet. The knockouts though are happening, and some teams are going home. Yiska, who do you think's going home this week? It's Big Brother. It's Bachelor. We've got the CEO. He's our Big Brother overlord. It's 1984. I think that's the right year. The book Orwell. Whatever. What are we doing?
See, we already preempted the counter argument against what you guys just said, because you said your favorite team will be eliminated from competition, and Andy's will be like, I don't even watch APAC. Like, joke's on you. And CEO goes, I'm disappointed in you, motherfucker.
It's right. He's dad. He's not happy.
So yeah, like I think I'm not perfect bracket.
You're pretty close.
If someone predicted the Dragons to lose that one, like, be my guest, but I didn't do that. I think the rest is okay-ish, still. So here's my problem, Joe.
What's that?
I predicted Spark to win the upper bracket.
What? Why?
I don't know. I don't trust Jimmy.
You don't trust Jimmy, but you'll trust...
No, I just said something inflammatory because I thought it would be more fun than saying I think Spark should win on most days.
I get that energy. I think they probably should, but boy howdy, have their recent performances not been inspiring in the least.
True, yeah. But the thing is, I think, hopefully, this team finds out that you actually don't have to play Sombra in this.
True.
And you can just play to your strength and farm. And as soon as they do that, I'm sorry, but now I am actively attacking Jimmy. Jimmy, you ain't shy, okay? You're getting in the neutral, okay? So, yeah, I think both matches, they're likely to have a rematch as well. Yeah. Both in Spark's favor. Also because, if not, I was like in a position, Joe, I'll be honest as well. I was like, I'm a couple of points behind. I need these, okay? I have the crystal ball on Spark.
True.
And I also then pride Spark to win. And if I get that double right, boy, I'm back in top 10, baby. That's why I had to double. Of course, like, it's all or nothing. I'm all in, baby. Like, if not, then I'll just say, in the recent leagues, I cared less and less about predicting, and really, like, when I still cared, I was like top 10. Now, nah.
Yeah. Just roll out the excuse, red carpet.
That's how it works. That's how you got to do it.
Well, let's start off with that one. Right after we thank our beautiful patron producers and our YouTube members. So for episode 298, getting close to 300, guys. It's kind of exciting. We want to give a special thank you to Battle Crab, Refined Bean, Bronzebot Boohow, Picasso, Chris R34444, Kasha67, Lolshin, Porkchop Sammy, Rexane, Volamel, and Sugar High, and our YouTube members, I am DRW, Brother, Adam L, Sagi Fumi, ISM Jello, Fire Element 6, aka and Chris R. If you can't necessarily support the show financially like these beautiful people, you can also download the podcast. That helps algorithmically. Like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. That helps a ton. Awesome. Spark Charge. Okay, I hear what you're saying when it comes to Jimmy and like the head-to-head, and the matchup should favor Spark because, boy, their Sombra does look a little inconsistent. And that was something that I did want to we didn't get to talk about it specifically, but something that I think has been very, I would say, kind of serendipitous this week has been like the varying in the differences of how Sombra is played right now. Not necessarily, okay, that's maybe the wrong way to say it. It's not how she's being played. It's like the nuance of how this character really works. I think it's an understatement to claim that she is a very like team-centric kind of flanking DPS. If your name is not Lip, most of the time it's not the case for a lot of teams, that you just don't have a Lip 76 Sombra that can just, mow people down and just assassinate people pretty consistently, right? So they're a little bit more team-centric, let's say, or at least for a lot of teams, that's the case. When you look at Edison coming out of like week 2 against the Spark, weirdly enough, there was like this huge gap where Edison is like, I think it was on Rialto, where he's just getting absolutely lapped. And it all comes back to like the positioning of how the team is, or the circumstance that they kind of find themselves in across the board for every team. It really dictates kind of what the Sombra is just allowed to do. It's like almost, it feels like, and I think we've talked about this in the past, maybe a little bit more in private, but like finding like the jungler in Overwatch, where it's like, okay, who is dictating the pace? Who is doing X, Y, or Z? And it feels like, I think that the tank roles have always been a little bit more analogous to jungling. But Sombra is this kind of like a roaming support character where like, yeah, you can frag on it. But if your team's not doing or setting you up for success, it's really hard to kind of notice you. And if they are, then you get to be lip. Then you get to be happy against the Shock, I believe it was. Shout outs to Coach Spilo, because I used his VOD or breakdown of the Sombra May composition to kind of better my understanding of, you know, what that hero comp is doing at the moment. So this is kind of forefront of my mind. But it each team has their own like weird Sombra, not problem, but like everybody's just a little bit different, and it's kind of fascinating to see. So like, it's for the Spark specifically, to tie this back in, when you look at the Charge's compositions that they're playing, yeah, it's not a ton of Sombra. So like, you don't really need to feel like you need to mirror it, you know? Like, you should be able to just like let Shy have a hit scan, let them, you know, almost mirror what the Charge want to do, and they should outperform them, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Like, once again, this is pretty unexpected for me. I had Charge pretty low in my estimation. I think that was also a complete miss, to be fair. But yeah, we'll see.
I mean, is that a miss? I don't know. Is that crazy to like come into the preseason and be like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know that the Charge that literally hasn't done anything has Piggy, who I think is maybe 1A to maybe Happy's 1B of most improved player, my opinion.
Yeah.
I think Happy is like turned around so beautifully from what I can tell. And what I'm obviously, you know, we've had Jake on the podcast talking about how he's like this really intelligent player and he can kind of play anything. That is like pretty evident. But on top of that, like Piggy just like, he went from like some guy who could play Diva sometimes and like Sigma really, really well to like leading a team and like being a solo tank, and maybe not the most competitive region, but like is doing well, really well, right? Like this is sick.
Yeah. You know, by the way, while we're on the subject of most improved player and APAC,
yeah,
kind of got it called, like, shout out Fixer. I think he has stepped up in that position as well.
Definitely.
I mean, we didn't have the nicest words for the guy for a while, right?
Not at all.
I feel like a lot of people had him pegged as one of the worst players maybe in the Overwatch League.
Yep.
And match Fixer no more, right? Like, I feel like it's really solid. Yes, there were some shaky parts, especially in the Soul Bowl, but like, once again, right now pretty solid. But yeah, to your point, I agree. The Piggy improvement was pretty out of the blue, especially like the Winston stuff is not something that I feel too bad about missing. And is not even the meta that they should be necessarily pogging off in, right?
Right, so, yeah. That's what's nuts, is like, you'd think that like, okay, if we remove the context of the games that we have seen and we just jump into the past and tell ourselves, hey, you know, Charge is going to be a little bit better, and we, you know, retort and we go, well, are they playing like Sigma or Diva? It's like, no, they're playing Monkey. It's like, what? Like, why? Like, is Diva like not good? It's like, no, you could play it. And they're like, but why aren't they just playing it? It's like, I don't know. Bye. You know, it's like, it doesn't make a ton of sense for the profile that we've kind of built up around Piggy, or at least conceptualized around Piggy, where he is this kind of like traditional flex tank player, not necessarily, you know, super confident in playing these other roles. We haven't necessarily seen him tested. And then we see him come out against Dallas Fuel, granted, maybe not the best looks for Dallas to start, or I mean, for half this season at this point. It feels weird saying that, but it's true. But looked really, really clean. Like, hasn't missed. Well, has caught up to the beat, right? Like he's not missing beats at this point. He is the beat. No, I think the Charge have been phenomenal, but I don't think it's like, I think anybody saying that Charge was going to be, a world beater and be in contention and maybe even leading the discussion for one of the two APAC representatives. I would have found that really hard to believe.
Sure, yeah. Yeah. No, we'll see. Other than that, I think like this bracket went pretty much as what you would expect, right?
Yeah.
No
Everything's
surprises
gone
up there. Maybe Charge dropping a map to Poker Faces, maybe a little unexpected. Dynasty, rough one at the moment, right?
A little bit. Obviously losing Prophet. I think he's got some like health issues going on, I believe. Somebody can double
mental
check
health
on that
stuff, yeah.
Okay. So he's taking time for himself, which, you burn the wick at both ends for that long, and I think it's only due, the GOAT needs a break, which I think is only smart. They did sign somebody who was a little interesting, and I think his name's Sonjun, from formerly of Team Diamond and Starlight. Somebody who it felt like, at least from like some of my pre knockout scouting, going through like the open tournament and those qualifiers, somebody who it seemed like was a very like a raw talent, somebody who you could tell was like probably pretty mechanically gifted, not somebody who felt like they had like a super high in-game IQ, but what made up for it was that I think they were probably one of the more well-coached teams. Actually, formerly, I think he worked with Miro on Diamond. And that was a team that you could really tell that was like coached well, I would say. They had some interesting like May boost strats with their brawl comps on, I think it was Shrine, where they would roll out laterally on the high ground. So like if you think of the map, it's on like the left side, not the coast side. And they would use their Maywall to like boost up to attack the supports like instantaneously. I'm like, oh, okay, that's an interesting look. And like something that I feel like a coach would be kind of like, okay, we're going to do this if they show that. Then there was, there was the push stuff. I looked into push for a lot of teams, and they had a really cool example where in the like Tracer Sojourn meta, I think last couple months, they were like very particular on where they were fighting on Esperanza, which kind of like spawned this whole like deep dive I did into there. And they were like very particular about like how they were fighting, where they were fighting. It was very like tight on it, and it was frustrating because you could tell they had like moments of brilliance where they had like this really great like map understanding and all the stars kind of aligned, and they executed like a really, really intricate macro strategy really well, and then they would just like pulse bomb their own feet and like just die. And it was just, they were like a really, really odd and interesting team. And Sonjun, you could tell, a little flexible. I think he was running around on May and Sojourn and Tracer, and like he had his moments, but it wasn't something that like, there were points on, I think, a couple of like circuit maps, I think in Contenders, where I spotted him just like taking just the most egregious flank angles and just trying to like do these hero plays to like dig his team back in, and it just wasn't working. And you could tell he's, I don't know, just felt like a raw player. Needs a little bit more time. So it sounds like at least they're remaining competitive, which is promising.
Yeah. No. Well, we'll see. I'm of course a little concerned what's going on with Prophet. Maybe it's the thing that I don't want to actually, let me not even speculate there. I think like he had a really solid start to the season as individually.
For sure, yeah.
And I hope he makes it back soon. I assume it will just be second half of the season is naturally a long break. I don't think he was selected for a World Cup, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my guy is probably on a 10-week match break at least.
Yeah.
Or 8 or whatever, how long it is. And yeah, there's a lot of chilling to do in that time, right? So best of luck to the GOAT, and we'll look out for your return.
Oh, for sure. I think it'd be Seoul's gonna need him, and I think he needs his time. So, well, hopefully he gets the rest he needs. Looking at what I think was probably one of the more interesting matchups, one that I did not think was going to be this close. O2 Infernal going the distance, going map 5. Yiska's painted this team. The Seoul Infernal is one of the most anti-clutch teams. And I know that we just gave some love to Match Fixa, but he can't shake the hat entirely. I do think that he has improved. I want to preface this very clearly. What I'm about to say is mostly in jest, but there was a point on Esperanza where I'm very certain I think he whip shots a Death Blossoming Reaper into his team. That can't happen. That really can't happen. I think that was one of those games for the Infernal where they got really antsy again. Like, this is a team that is just foaming at the mouth to try to get that win. Because you load into the Esperanza, you get like maybe 10 minutes in. You get like 2-3 minutes into the VOD, and it's like, yeah, I don't know how this team loses this map. They have like a considerable lead. They're playing really well. Zest is kind of like warming up and like hitting his shots. Like, I don't know how they throw this. And weirdly enough, I think they kind of got cheesed.
Yeah.
They just ran into a creative look from O2 centered around Junker Queen. They lost Havana because of it. I think Attack kind of subbed in really, really well for them. Was very strong on Junker Queen, I thought. And Marvel comes in for a push, and they pull it out again sporadically through the map. And you can tell that Seoul is just really... I think they knew what they needed to do, but like we're very antsy on just like sitting there and waiting, especially in the neutral. If you go back and you watch that first fight, actually, rewind that. If you go back and you watch it's London versus somebody, and I can't remember who it is, and I just wrote about it too. London has a very interesting matchup versus, I think it's Florida. I think London, Florida, first fight on Esperanza. It's a very similar kind of matchup. Mm-hmm. It's like Junker Queen kind of brawl comp versus the dive of Florida. And I think Florida plays it out perfectly. They identify they're playing like this Junker Queen May stuff. They're sitting back and they're poking at the monkey. And it's like, okay, fine. We're not going to be able to just dive into the Junker Queen just wholesale. So we're not going to. What we're going to do is we're just going to take some damage. We're going to build up nano and then we engage. Beautifully played, executed perfectly, forces London to swap. A+, Mayhem clears. Fast forward to O2 Seoul. Same kind of, dilemma happens where Mag starts to get a little antsy. He's going for dives. He gets knife pulled. He's taking a little too much damage. They're not necessarily setting up the trade really well, and then they kind of get the nano. They force it. They lose a couple people. It's not as clean, but they still kind of win. And ultimately, like, it just didn't feel like Seoul kind of had their footing with like the Junker Queen mashup. So that's where I felt like the game kind of started to fall out of their hands. But obviously, they cleaned it up on control as they probably should have. But yeah, what were your kind of some of your takeaways from that one? There was obviously quite a bit to watch.
Well, the first one is Scrimbox once again, right? Scrimbox actually, like, from my research, if I'm not mistaken, O2 was in the top 4 in APAC. And I think that checks out. I think they are probably on the level of Spark, on the level of Charge, on the level of Infernal here.
Yep.
And that's a problem down the line, right? If you look down the bracket, they will almost certainly beat Shanghai Dragons and send them home. And they will almost certainly beat the winner of Panthera and San Prisa. And then I'm not sure if Dallas Fuel got that one.
I have him losing. I have O2 in the final.
I agree. I think it comes down to a rematch in the final between O2 and Infernal. Actually, pretty unlucky. Unlucky? Am I stupid? Not that unlucky. For O2, but yeah, good enough for now, I suppose. It is unlucky. They could have had Dallas Fuel instead, I suppose. On the other side, and then they could have. Oh well, in the end, you need to beat all of them. Need to win.
I don't think it's completely like unreasonable to see O2 like make this loser bracket run and like put up a fight and like maybe like I don't think it's completely out of the question that O2 wins this rematch. I don't think it's that crazy. I think it's not likely. I would still predict Infernal to win. But O2 has definitely shown some interesting stuff. I think what they do with Lucio a lot of the time. I think there are two examples that I could have spotted from this match in particular. One on Nepal Sanctum, and then on Havana B, where they're using Lucio to go on these really kind of interesting flank routes with their hit scans. One is a beautiful like flanking dynamite that I think really kind of set them up. They hit like a fat like brig stun. It's great. And then on Nepal, it doesn't necessarily work out, but it was like an interesting kind of like proactive play that I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm glad to see like a contenders team like really trying some macro stuff against these L teams and not just like falling over and dying. So I think they have something there, right? Like I think they have a lot of things going for them. I don't think I don't think Infernal are like the most tight team yet. I think they can become that team very, very quickly. But it does feel like they do just kind of want to play for the win a little too much, and they overextend, they overinvest. It's not all there just yet. But yeah, that's going to be an interesting one to watch. I would still say Infernal probably is pretty heavily favored, but I wouldn't be shocked if O2 finds a couple maps in that final and makes it scarily close.
I will also say the other takeaway for me was Marvel is still a gamer.
Still a gamer, still been gaming, going through the WDG Open tournament. Easily one of the best Ramachas in the region. Like not close. It is. And he still might be. Unironically. I don't know. And this is kind of like, well, I mean, we are in like modern Overwatch, or modern Overwatch 2. So it's getting to a point where it's like, yeah, the monkey isn't necessarily there. Like Winston isn't fantastic. I think there's a lot of like, I think in this matchup in particular, I think there's a couple times where I can probably recall a few primals being used just for health bars, just like, oh, I misplayed. I gotta use this as a +1 and try to get out. Instead of like trying to use it proactively. So a little rough around the edges at that point, but all in all, probably an upgrade for some of these teams, or like a piece that you could really just slot in next to like a Dallas Fuel, maybe a Hanbin, and I don't think it'd be terrible. I think maybe Seoul Dynasty could maybe even use him. And that's no shame to Belisari. I think he has a place on this team, but yeah, Marvel fucks.
It's not close to me. I feel like if you have Marvel instead of Belisari, instant upgrade.
It's better. Yeah, I would agree. I think they have like similar kind of well, not similar hero profiles, but they have like similar kind of pains. There's just less pain with Marvel.
Yeah.
Somebody who's very flexible, who can kind of do a lot for you, who did a lot for I think Boston last year found some success with them early on. Like somebody who deserves to be in the league for sure. It was kind of surprising to not see Marvel and 2U as like a package duo on a team. Like I think that would have been a tank line that, in a separate universe where a Shanghai Dragons has a little bit more money. Yeah, that's probably a significant, item level upgrade for Fleta.
Sure.
Yeah, like you're really jamming that in there and feeling real good about it. So yeah, no, there's some hitters and contenders.
I'm sorry. Either like the trial blocks for Fleta were like, I don't know, he was just like peaking all his neurons, or like it's heavy cap and one guy showed up because like, I don't know, timings on the scrim block were off, or
yeah.
Nah, dude. Like there's so much more good talent on tank role, even in the region, that you're competing against than Fleta. I'm sorry, he's just not it, dude. He's getting gapped by every fucker at this point.
Yeah. Yep. That's when they kind of came out and talked about how like, oh yeah, Fleta fought for his position and he was the best candidate for the job. It's like, all right, was there just one of one? Did he just show up on the day that you gave him the time and nobody else? Like, bro, I might even take 800 at this point.
Crazy.
Dude, Rhodes wasn't even that bad coming in, and they still took him. They still took Dynasty kind of close. Like I haven't caught that game just yet, but like 800 ain't bad.
Yeah. Oh well. Yeah. I don't know.
What are you gonna do? Yeah, I get it.
Dude, like I'll tell you, like I interviewed Gator, and he said like a couple of coaches in the Overwatch League are heavily overhyped, and most of it is like for top teams they play themselves practically. Assembling is hard and handling the emotions. I think that's a skill set that Moons excels at. Not necessarily. Whenever this guy doesn't have top tier budgets, the pattern seems to be that he just like gets shit on, right? Like. It was the same as was true for Valley. That doesn't mean he isn't a good top coach, because once again, the skill set for a top tier coach is to build the roster and then make sure it doesn't tilt and runs. Okay, that's not a trivial task by any means, right?
No, not at all.
But he also always had large teams around him. Now, like I feel like he already failed at the selection stage. He doesn't have the resources anymore.
Yeah.
And I mean, he also just sold off some of the biggest talents. So yeah, I don't know. Like, doesn't look too favorable on his legacy in terms of the full breadth of ability. But maybe we should just become comfortable with the idea that there are people who coach or are well positioned to be the guy in a top team that just like keeps everyone smooth and running and selects top salaries with top resources, and the guy that can squeeze the most out of mid-tier or low-tier budgets and punch up. And that was also something that Gator agreed with, that that's like coaching is feasible to make a low to mid-tier budget team punch up. At the top level, it doesn't contribute that much anymore. It doesn't appear to be that Moon is one of those coaches that is capable of building a team that punches above their waistline.
Yeah, I mean, I think I first I want to say that I agree. I think in like most all definitions that you kind of lay out there, where mid to low tier you can punch up. At the highest level, it really, it's not a coaching battle as much as maybe teams, maybe fans think it is. It really comes down to like who's better on the day, what do those hero pools look like, and what is the meta gamble, right? Like, did you roll higher or did they roll higher? Because that's way more indicative of what's going on rather than like, the X's and O's of Krusty versus Moon is different, right? Like I don't think that's the case. Or at least like Prime Moon. I think there is a little. I struggle with this because there's a part of me that wonders where like the OG Moon went. Like the mighty AOD Moon. where homie's out here like just kind of coaching like this kind of mid-table team to be like kind of competitive with teams they have really no right being competitive with, right? On the other hand, I do kind of hurt my heart kind of hurts for him because I know damn well that Shanghai Dragons is not giving him any money. You know, like he doesn't have the resources to kind of recruit the people that you really should want to. What's strange is, and I have to wonder if this is the case, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. I wonder if the people that we're talking about that probably should be in the league, from like the O2 Blast, the Sinpressas, the maybe even the Pantheras of the world, like, is there a world where that contract just doesn't seem enticing to those players, or it's just like, I'd rather just play from home. I'd rather not have to deal with like, you know, XY. Maybe O2 might even like pay comparable. I don't know.
Probably not.
Is that something? I would have to. I genuinely don't know. So just kind of tossing it out there. Yeah, no, it is bizarre. It is bizarre because we've seen Moon kind of start this way, but I tend to agree that there is like a pattern of him not succeeding outside of like a couple events, where he just doesn't have like top tier talent, and that kind of like just maybe overshadows some things. Somebody who I think in the past, if you want to look at patterns, I think his track record is very former player reliant. Somebody who I think like really, I think probably build systems around, you know, maybe not systems, maybe that's the wrong word, but like cultures around players that he's worked with, prioritizes that more. Because you look at like even in season 2, like, or I think it might have been season 2, season 3, where it was like, it felt like very obvious that he would try to make a play for Fate on Florida, where it's like, yeah, no, Moon's gonna try to make a play for him. Fate kind of is still hitting. Yeah. They've worked together before. Lo and behold, he does. They look great, awesome, fantastic, right? Like, this is one of those. This feels like a problem where he doesn't have the resources to recruit the players he wants. Those players being former players who might still not have been the right calls anyways, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Like, just a bunch of old heads that can't necessarily play the game. Maybe in an alternate world, the Shanghai Dragons look very similar to the Boston Uprising in that kind of way, right? Like, it's just a bunch of old heads that like were around when Moon was around, and they might be competitive, more competitive than this, but I don't know if it's that much different, to be completely honest. It doesn't feel like, I think you could probably say the same thing about Krusty scouting, but I think he hits more often than he doesn't. Same thing with Rush. I think Moon has a couple of like project players that may loom over his career that just like what are we doing here? You know, I don't know if the scouting is entirely there for the new players on the come up, you know?
Sure. Yeah, otherwise, like, I'm starting to warm up to the opinion that there's probably not too big of a counter argument towards APAC being the weaker region. I think we'll probably see that NA is going to dominate mid-season.
I don't know if I don't like dominate, but I think like the top 2 teams from APAC versus top 2 teams from NA, it's not close. NA wins.
Yeah.
I think Infernal and maybe Charge both are probably around.
Gladiators, really?
Yeah, honestly, yeah. I did really.
Maybe.
I didn't care for. Well, we can get into that, but yeah, I would say like Glad's Mayhem level. Yeah, around there. I think those games would be like highly competitive, from what I'm seeing personally. I think Glad's is still a little sloppy. Given Vancouver way too much space, way too much, just a lot of gimmies. Still couldn't get it across the line though. To be fair to you, but no, Vancouver made that way closer than it needed to be, or Gladiators made that way closer than they needed to be with Vancouver.
Yeah.
And yeah, Mayhem is good, but maybe it's wrong to put Mayhem below Glads, to be honest. I might have to revisit that, but yeah, I think APAC is around that like 3rd, 4th NA level. So I think it'll be NA leaning. NA probably will win. I think Atlanta probably just wins. I'm not gonna bet a shoe on it, but that'd be my favorite coming into the midseason. And yeah, behind them probably Houston, right?
Sure. Yeah. No, I just don't disagree.
So it should be NA leaning, and I would agree there. But dominant, I don't know. We'll have to see.
We'll see. Speaking of NA,
yes, we'll get to NA. Want to give a quick shout out because I think Jake kind of brought this up on his episode, talking about how like APAC teams are a little like less cheesy in his mind, where they kind of just play like the standard comp and they don't do anything. Soul Infernal doing some weird stuff with the ball, with the Orisa. Yeah. They feel like a Western team. They feel like a very like, all over the place team. They're willing to kind of adapt and play to all kinds of stuff. They're playing the Rhine on Antarctica like NA teams do. So I think they'll kind of fit into midseason really well. They'll probably do better than their APAC brethren, but yeah. So NA. Oh, is it really just a 2-horse race, man? It does feel like it. It does feel like some 3 Overwatch.
I think Gladiators has a word in it as well. I think that's a sensible take.
Do they?
Yeah, think? I mean they beat fucking Atlanta in the Pro-Am, right?
Yeah, they did.
So I think like even Atlanta, again I talked to Gator, like they acknowledge Gladiators as part of that group. It sounds like. So yeah, no, I don't think we should discard them here. Now, I think Florida is clearly out of range.
Interesting. Okay. So what would be your range right now for like a midseason? Who is like your front 4? It is 4, right? We send 4?
Yeah.
NA sends 4, Apex sends 2. Yeah.
Atlanta, tier break. No. Atlanta, Houston, tier break.
Tier break. Yeah.
Gladiators, tier break, Florida.
Okay. Yeah, I don't hate that. Yeah, Florida feels like an odd one to me. I don't feel like I have a good profile of like what their strengths, what their weaknesses are. Still kind of a creative team in my mind. Glads on the other hand, it does feel like they're just so, what's the word I want to use? You can high roll really high on the Gladiators and they can look absolutely phenomenal. And then you can kind of roll whatever showed up versus the Vancouver Titans. And it's like the gameplay's kind of sloppy. Yeah, you still win. Still 3-1. But like that game was just, that should have been easier for you. I'm not gonna lie. That was, and I like me some Titans. Don't get me wrong. Like this isn't I think, you should just put away the Titans really easy. I think that's not an easy task. Dropping a map and maybe even arguably should have dropping, probably could have dropped 2. That's not entirely building a lot of confidence for me. Still just kind of just sloppy stuff. A lot of just simple stuff, silly mistakes. Against Vancouver, I think there was a point. I think they C9 Rialto A, or not Rialto, Havana A. And then they're like reinvesting alts into it, and I'm like, what are we doing? Why are we doing this, man? Like, you guys know better, and I know you know better. It's tough, and it has less to do with like, oh, Kai, just hit your shots, because we know he can.
Yeah,
I think Kevster had like kind of a little bit of a quiet week. I don't expect that to be a consistent thing, right? Like, this is a team that, yes, playing prime form will absolutely contend with, those top teams. The problem is we just don't always get that. We just don't always get prime Glads, and that's kind of where I struggle with them.
Yeah, no, I don't hate it. I guess we'll see. Dude, I'm struggling with a top 5 right now.
What do you mean?
If I was to name top 5 in NA.
Okay.
Because, like, I named the 4.
Yeah.
is 5 Titans, Justice, or Boston?
In terms of form right now,
it has to be Titans.
I might say Titans, and that might be cap for a lot of people, but hopefully that is enough evidence that you think it might be Titans as well.
I mean, they beat Boston, so the head-to-head,
right?
Is,
sure,
right?
Yeah. I mean, again, we're not talking about like in terms of like a tiebreaker. We're just talking about like what team looks to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't hate if somebody was like, yeah, I think Boston is 5th. With some solid reasoning. Yeah, I could see that. I don't hate that. Me personally, from the immediate competition that I've seen and the form into that competition, it's like Boston put away a Toronto that is shockingly poor. Shockingly, it is mind-boggling how disappointing that team is right now. Versus a Titans who took a Gladiators who I think low rolled, but look very comfortable. Look way better than I think people expected. Yeah, I think I'd lean Titans as maybe number 5 right now. Boston, I think, is close. That would be my only other one. I don't think it's Justice as much as I love me some Alpha Yi. Yeah, no, I just don't think that team has much of a chance against top teams when Alpha Yi just can't just be like a +1 player consistently.
Sure.
Solid team, I think, better than people expected, but not top 5 level, I'd say.
Yeah. Otherwise, we had a shitload of first 3-0 Overwatch, then 3-1 Overwatch, because everyone just loves trolling a singular map in their already won series, apparently.
Yeah.
Fucking my Preds in the process, not appreciated.
It does seem like it's always Escort too. That's like the one map that's like, oh, yep, okay, here comes the Escort sub, and that team doesn't have an Escort sub, so I guess they just lose because they can't play Diva or Sig or whatever it is. That's what it kind of feels like.
Yeah, rough one. Also, honestly, in terms of the pairings or the games that we got, other than maybe Titans, Glads.
Okay.
Not many good games, right? Unfortunately.
Not a ton of good games. I think there was some litmus testing going on with Shock. Obviously, a team that is bleeding out right now. I don't think anybody expected them to beat Houston. I guess maybe that's a question for you there, or maybe the question for the both of us. Does that map win? Does that performance that they showed against Houston give you any kind of faith?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
I think it's going to get weirder rather than better.
Okay.
But we'll see. Like, you already know, I'm Team Gamba coaching philosophy. I think incremental improvements need to be evidenced in performance. It's not been like, this is not a Spitfire situation of last season where they just like get better and better and pick up speed. I haven't seen that from this team yet. Yeah, it's rough. Like, to be fair, if you think about this season, right? Like, okay, just in your mind, just think of this season as season 4, where we also had the same amount of games and more stages. Shock was also not good in most stage 1s. Like 2019, they weren't great, right? By the way, I have an interview coming out with a true unicorn, Chris Chung. And that's also his argument, which kind of resonates with me. Nevertheless, this is almost like beyond that now for me. What is this score? 3-3? It's not atrocious yet, right? So there's still, it feels like they have a worse score than they actually do, but it's also down to them just having played a lot of shit teams, to be fair.
Yes.
So is it 3-3, Eric? Let me.
Shock staying at 3-3 with a 10-14 map record.
Yeah. And they played. Okay, in hindsight, the win against Toronto, not that impressive. Atlanta,
not at all.
Bashed out. Justice, bashed out.
Yep.
Narrow against Excel. Yeah, this just is straight not a good start, right?
No.
It's one where they got away with a black eye, but they got away. It doesn't toss the season away yet.
Not yet, but there needs to be a complete switch flip.
They got to win one of the upcoming ones. Either Florida or Mayhem. They got to put a dub on the.
Neither seems possible at where I just don't see it. I really don't. Both of those games, I'm not gonna lie. Let me double check. I did my Preds like last week with the games a little bit more fresh. I didn't give Shock a map.
Yeah, that's
I just
rough.
don't. I don't see it, man. I do not see how this team, because this was kind of the week, and I think I might have said this last week prior to the Avro episode. Which, if you're interested in the PvE discussion, if you're interested to know the what we think of the ongoing PvE debacle, which is kind of interesting to hear that there's like more leaks coming out or whatever. From Team 4, so check that out if you're interested. But we did do an episode with Avril kind of talking about our thoughts about PvE, so check that out. But prior to that, I thought, at least I think I remember pinning week 4 as being like the week where if Shock is going to turn it on and be like, okay, we get it now, we get what we did wrong, we're going to come out, we're going to be competitive against Houston, and we're going to put away the Valiant, and didn't really see that too much.
Yeah. Oh well, we'll see.
And it's frustrating. It's so frustrating because there are just the mistakes that the San Francisco Shock are making that it just seems so out of character for like the players that we were kind of sold, if that makes sense, where it's like, oh yeah, this tank line's so good, and obviously we know Proper and like Keysang's so good, and that like they've played together before. Okay, great. Like you're checking all the boxes for me, man. Like you're selling me some good stuff. Like I'm getting a little moist in the mouth. Like you're just presenting me with some sick barbecue. It's a little drippy. The timing, the coordination. Nobody's talking. It doesn't feel like anybody's talking to each other. It seems like just so many different like fundamental things are going wrong. I think it was against. Did they play Hollywood? Am I misremembering this? It might have been a week prior, but like there was a couple like Hollywood defenses that were just awkward. It just, Shock just ain't it for me right now, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's some problems.
There were problems. Like again, I'm not sure if it will be live by the time you're watching this, but the day after probably. We discussed like what the problems are based on and what solutions are being worked on. And honestly, like some of the stuff was, especially the problems that they had around the housing or whatever, is as he explains it, entirely understandable. I don't want to content steal enough, like too much from myself. That Ezra already does that on Reddit by summarizing all the juiciest content in the top comments. But yeah, I think like there's some reason to believe that it might be going up soon, but yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, unless we're doing like wholesale changes, right? And I'm not talking emergency band-aid fixes. Something needs to change. And I think Kenobi and I were actually doing some review not too long ago, and I think one of the big takeaways that I kind of took from Shock in particular was like this idea that maybe Violet was this. I think we were kind of talking about like this narrative of like, oh yeah, they should have never let Violet go. Oh god, Shock misplayed the offseason. And I was like, okay, I don't hate that, but like, what are we really trying to say? Are we trying to say that like Violet was this like centerpiece to the team? Was he like a vocal and emotional leader that kind of like people could rally behind? Was he a large caller for the team that kind of like added to the coordination? Because it does feel like a completely, and it is a different team, but like something has regressed with a team that was kind of weirdly piecemealed together that reached grand finals, and a team that has played together before and it looks like they've never played together a day in their lives. You know what I mean? Like it's just so different. So maybe there's some discussion to be had there about like what Violet does intangibly, which could be kind of interesting. But yeah, no, I don't think anybody saying that like, oh yeah, Violet just makes Shock better, full stop, no other context is. I don't particularly care for that. I think Violet, knocking on the door of the GOAT.
Sure.
One of the best, Mount Rushmore Overwatch players, obviously. But yeah, I don't think just like plugging Violet back into Shock right now just like fixes them,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a weird dilemma. That's a very odd team to kind of get a grip on, and it is slipping away. We're getting to the halfway point of the season, and yeah, I agree. Next season, or not next season, but next week, staring down the barrel of Florida Mayhem that don't look bad, and a Boston Uprising that could be challenging for 5th in NA. Those do feel like must wins, right? Like you gotta show me something, or I gotta call this fight because you're just getting pummeled. You're getting beat in the marketplace of ideas, and my guy, I don't know how many times I gotta slap Flex Seal on you to patch up. It's rough.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. Otherwise, let's have a gander at those matches. What other matches? Like, man, what a garbage week.
There wasn't much. Yeah, it wasn't a great week.
Didn't feel
Toronto just feels where are we going, man? Like, you're not showing me anything. Boston, it felt kind of.
Yeah, it's kind of like ironic that both of those former contenders, late Overwatch 1 bloomer contenders dynasties, just are shitting the bed right now, right? Both the Shock and the Defiant.
Oh, speaking of, because not to White Knight, but I do remember some like very critical comments of one Lemon Kiwi coming on here and like raising I think rightful eyebrow at these contenders teams, and raising some like very, I think salient, if not maybe a little general, questions around like, oh yeah, we've seen contenders players do well in contenders. What is that? What are we really saying when that happens? Lo and behold. And I think she'd probably maybe even fight the opinion that like, oh, Toronto should be good. Like, obviously, maybe a little bit, more comfortable with those players than the O2 players. But I think the point still stands where it's like, yeah, you can kick ass in contenders. You can do some good shit in contenders, but it's a little different when you get up here.
Well,
it's not the same.
Yep.
So I think somebody deserves an apology. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure.
Y'all gotta watch your mouths, because it's true. How many contenders talent have we seen have comparable, if not better, Overwatch League transitions, right? Like, not every rookie hits. Not every just wholesale team bought just hits. It's I would almost wonder if it's more of a miss than a hit most of the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Like, yeah, obviously, like, oh, okay, yeah, what are you gonna nitpick on Yakpung? It's like, yeah, no, obviously, like, he's like a great example of somebody who like looked hot shit in contender, steps up into the Overwatch League, swing and a miss twice, right? Yeah, it's different. It's different, and obviously, not both teams are have their own struggles and woes, but I don't know. I just, I think this is a cautionary tale to any just contenders truthers that think that just plug and play, they'll just, dominate outside of like a couple particular teams. Yeah. Caution. Go slow. Yellow light.
Sure. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I'll also clip your wings. Don't think the Gladiators against Titans series was particularly close, despite like the relatively close score. We're once again going to be slacked in the comments for saying it wasn't, but yeah.
I see that's one, and I saw somebody. I did see that comment. I think you're also referencing where it's just like, oh, you're talking about Houston and Atlanta not being close. They were one fight away. It's like it's not about like one or two fights going differently. It's about form for me.
Yeah.
It's about like what you're really showing me. Because yeah, it's true. If we wake up on a different day, maybe it goes a little differently. That's not the realm that we're getting into. And it's like, okay, if we were to use that logic, a lot of these games are just closer than everybody's saying. And I don't hate that, but it's not.
It's also
we're not saying anything.
It's also like Overwatch sometimes isn't too indifferent from like a football game, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Or soccer, right?
Mm-hmm.
In football, European football, you can absolutely dominate a game and lose 1-0.
Yep.
And in Overwatch, you can look great in fights and then just like toss it in one fight, and that mistake screws you over for maybe the rest of the map, right?
Yeah, just snowballs.
This is definitely true on push. Like, if you watch, like, you can be, like, if you lose the first 3 fights because you're tossing it down mid,
yeah, just
then
not
it
playing
takes 5-6 fights to come back, and if you're playing them world-class level, then, like, you're still uphill battling, right?
Yeah.
You also can lose fights very stupidly, and you can also take fights really in weird positions, and you can all say like, okay, maybe that's a wrong way to look at Overwatch as like a team fighting game, because like of course not all team fights are made equal. Sometimes you take fights that have lower chance of being won because you're like taking them in a position where maybe you can squeeze out a 3-fight point on escort or whatever, right? Like that all exists. It is about execution at the end of the day. And yes, like from a technical point of view, I agree with you that those series were in that sense close. It's just not the one sense that we necessarily meant. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's where I might have a differing opinion when it comes to like the Vancouver Glads game, because I do think that was a little bit closer. I think when you look at like if you were to like remove the nameplates and you just kind of are AM radioing, like live tweeting what's happening on, let's take a map from that game like Rialto, or I'm sorry, I keep wanting to call it Rialto, it's Havana. And it's like, oh yeah, Vancouver is close holding, and they win the first fight and they're doing super well and they draw it to OT on their defense, and it's like, oh dang, like that should be like a recipe for success, just isn't. Like that's one of those games to kind of circle back to your example of like close games where it's like it seems like everything's kind of going right for them. I think on Blizzard World it didn't feel that way, but on Havana in particular, it felt like everything was kind of going right up until it didn't, and then it just kind of like got a little out of hand. Yeah, I think closer than the score looks like, form wise. I think there's a reason why we look at Vancouver as maybe a 5th place team right now. I think that was a big confidence booster for me, looking at a team that maybe even is challenging for 3rd in the Gladiators. And seeing that the narrative put to rest that like this DPS duo can hang, Punk can hang, as much as, and maybe this is my macro knowledge in the matchup being a little poor, but I really wish on Blizzard World we saw a little bit more Winston hate.
Yeah,
there was little too much Dante jumping in for free, and I will forever praise, the real ones will remember, I will forever praise the coolest Matthew 69 for being one of the best monkey haters in the game's history. The amount of times this kid in like 2017 would just boop Winston's on the engage, just boosters. He would just like booster, bump them, fly back down. Clean as shit, bro.
Yeah.
It's just super quick with it. Quick little boops just to push them, just to stop the velocity. They just drop down. The dive fails.
Yeah.
It's golden, right? Like there was not a ton of that in positions where I think Punk probably could have. I have to wonder if that's just not a play they want to make, because I respect Punk. I think he's probably, a world-class talent. He probably can hit those. This felt like a choice not to hit them, and that's where I'm like, okay. It feels like we're actively not trying to do that at this point. It doesn't feel like, oh, you're just missing them. It's we're choosing not to for some reason, which I think is a little interesting. I feel like that could have been better.
Sure.
But no, yeah, I think Vancouver, Crimzo, Faith again. I drew a spotlight on him. I think he did it again on Control, where he's an anti-Lucio motherfucker, dude. This kid is I think people are waking up to it. I think Broy put out the bat signal. He lit the fuse, and we're starting to see the dynamite pay off. This kid is a gamer.
Yeah.
Kid Fox. There's a point on it was on Blizzard World where Kev goes for a pulse. He misses the stick and kind of pulses behind Faith on Brig, and he like has the presence of mind to like turn around, because it looks like most main supports, they just kind of like die to it. It's like a floor pulse. Oh shit, like I die. GG, go next. He like turns. He knows he has like enough shield health to block it. Uses the shield to LOS the floor pulse, and then like lives, and then just instantly back into the fight. I'm like, whoa, okay, I see you, Faith. Like he's fucking bulletproof and makes plays that people just kind of don't see. He does another anti-Lucio thing versus Astro. I think, let me double check. On Oasis. I think it might have been City Center, it might have been University. I can't remember which one it was. It might have been University, now that I think about it. Where he gets above Astro and sets up his team for a boop. Like this kid's got some fucking heat. We need to start celebrating this support, because
I agree. Yeah.
Vancouver sleeper good. Sleeper super good.
Yeah, I don't disagree. All right. Want to get some Preds in? Wanna be proven correct? Wanna do all the good stuff?
We do have to do a little Predding, because
let me see.
There's some
kind of bullshit I came up with.
It wasn't lost on me that Roston was in the comments,
Yes.
Juicing you up a little bit.
Believed. Okay. So
where do we want to start? Where are we going, Pred wise?
I mean, we already have Predded APAC last week, so we just
pretty much, yeah. Well, I mean, sort of. We didn't really go through everything, but I think you can kind of piece together that, like, we think O2 probably beats Dallas.
Yeah.
Panthera probably doesn't beat O2. Infernal probably beats O2 to cinch that up. Charge and Spark are fighting for, top bracket. Be that how it may. So I think you kind of can piece that together.
Yeah, whatever.
But for NA,
shit region, ass pack, next.
Okay, all right. I'm just saying, Ross, and if you want to leak to somebody who's a little bit more favorable to the APAC play style, that's all I'm saying. My DMs are open. That's all I'm saying. London Glads, let's start there. Is this an interesting one?
No. 3-0 East.
Why do I feel like this is... Do we know the map pool? We don't. I don't think.
Overcomplicating, clear 3 zeros based, losing points based, informing them less about misinforming them based.
Maybe when I spread misinformation on the internet.
Keep going. I'm taking all the points with my 3-0. Maybe you could convince someone above me to.
I'll try to ruin your homework. Yeah, I think 90% of me says yes, 3-0, move on next. The 10% comes down to whether or not they play Shambali, or whether or not the escort allows London to play Ryan. And I know that a lot of people are going to roll their eyes. Again. Maybe that narrative is a little, annoying, but it's true, right? They do punch up when they can play Ryan, when maps allow them to play Ryan. if they draw maps like Antarctica, First Control, if they draw, let's say, Shambali, I think they can squeeze one in. I think that's the only way you're going to get a 3-1. That's one that I'm going to be paying a little close attention to. When it comes to like, having the map pool given to us, that's where it really kind of falls down to. We're arguing a map though. It's a clear glides win, just spread glides, easy points.
Yeah.
ATL Vegas, is that it's ATL
3-2 Vegas, yeah. And for the sake of like arguing a meaningless point, and also once again stealing points from my haters. Do credit.
I see. Yeah. Based. Copy his homework, guys.
Based. Okay, clear 3-0. If you haven't used your point booster, that's
it's the only good one to use it on.
Yeah.
Get 2 per half, right? We're getting 2 more.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Yeah. Justice NYXL. Is this also 3-0?
I'll say 3-1. NYXL. I think like I like Justice, but I think they're not like as clean as they probably could be. Still want to see a little bit more out of Flora. I'll never say a bad thing about Alpha E most of the time. So yeah, I think New York might just kind of, dare I say, luck. They might just find like a couple good fights, maybe take a map a little closer.
Sure.
I could see a 3-1. I don't want to hate Justice 3-1.
Based, locked in. 3-1. Then okay, now we're cooking. Outlaws Mayhem
should be a 3-0.
That's a 3-0 for you, dude. Like you're all over the place.
It's more of like, okay, where does Houston drop? Where does that map drop? I just don't see, unless Florida like really wants to come out and try to like flex on. If Florida can flex someone's hero pool against Fearlesses on certain maps and like really come in and counter comp them, which I don't know that you can in this meta right now. I don't know that like there is a counter comp so much as there is like, oh, okay, you want to play Winston? Well, my main tank can play Junker Queen and Diva and Doom, so we're gonna throw you a lot of questions, and you have to make sure you have to like do a skill check. That was something that I like. That was something I'm gonna steal from Jake, where it's like, okay, Florida could throw Houston a lot of skill checks. I think Houston probably skill checks 99% of the time. Yeah. My niece is in the bathtub. Forgive the background.
No, all good.
Yeah, that's where I'm like, I don't know. I don't hate a 3-1, but like it does. I don't know if Florida's gonna hold a candle. Maybe they do. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going 3-1 as well. Blah, blah. Okay, now we're in territory where it is getting spicy.
It's getting a little tough.
Yes.
Toronto, London.
I'm going.
I think we're on the same side here.
Yeah, this is a weird one, but I'm going 3-2 Defiant.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. I think I'm going. Yeah, I think I'm going 3-2 London. There's something about Toronto where, much like I was talking about Soul Dynasty's new player and like his kind of attribute, if you will, it does feel like Toronto just like it. There are moments where I'm like, oh, I think that's like a brilliant play. I think versus Boston, them subbing in Sam for Nepal so that they could try to play like, I think that was more particular to like them wanting to play a little bit more Junker Queen, but also still allowing them to play the Brawl Mirror really well. I thought that was like really like astute, but it's just kind of fine gameplay. Like another team that like I feel like you need Hydron to like step up and like just hit a couple like crazy bangers. You need like Speedily to just like step up and just like pop off, and it just doesn't always happen. Whereas I think London, they're showing me something a little bit more consistent, and I trust that staff a little bit more to keep that locker room a-okay, keep the morale a little high. Maybe I'm doing a little Ouija boarding, maybe I'm doing a little Mars and lemonade, but there's something about Toronto that makes me suspicious that those internals are a little hostile sometimes.
Sure.
And I think if you get in a close series, I don't wonder if that maybe looms. I think macro wise, I think both teams can come out and have some interesting looks. I think I'm very interested to see what that map pool looks like, because we could get some wonky matchups that I don't think any other teams are really going to show us. I like that Toronto's playing a little bit more like Winston hate comps, or with the Junker Queen. They're getting Sam into the mix, even though I think that might be to their detriment, but depends on how you think of Hitscan at the moment. I don't know. I think it is a spicy matchup, but I like London here in 5.
I don't hate it. I think part of me is just like, if you don't win this one, Jesus Christ, your season's already...
Yep.
Woof. Deep in the shitter.
They should beat them. I think Toronto should beat London, but like what I've seen thus far, it just does not seem like they're up to form to be able to like clear the London skill check,
Yeah. Oh well. Close one.
It's a tight one. Yeah, that's one definitely don't miss.
I don't hate either. Now, this is a double point one. Now I'm not liking my own bread, but I went
What did you bread?
I went 3-0 Rain.
Yeah, 3-0.
You think this cleared 3-0? I'm not sure. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think Birdring's Sombra isn't terrible. I think he's definitely somebody that has stepped up quite a lot.
You also don't have to play Sombra. That's the thing.
You don't, but I think versus Atlanta, you need to show me something very interesting to get me to, I think that was the interesting thing about the Houston-Atlanta head-to-head. Especially on Control, where it did feel like Happy was very... he felt very informed. Felt like he had a dossier on where Lip... he felt like he had like a couple heat maps, of where Lip was placing his translocators, where he tended to path. Like he was kind of like shutting him down for Control at the very least. And I think that's kind of how you at least get Atlanta to slow down a little bit. But yeah, if you don't want to play Sombra, you would need somebody like Birdring to like be on a very hot hands day on a very particular set of maps that we don't know if you're going to draw. I don't see how it necessarily lines up in that way. I don't hate a world where maybe Boston squeaks one over the edge, but I'm not sold on Boston just yet. I don't think they're a completely bad team by any stretch of the imagination. I just think Atlanta's just way too far ahead. The fundamentals, the fundamentals, meaning like the synchronicity, the coordination, these dives since Pro-Am have been crispy. The timings. Again, I'm going to shout out this video until people actually go and check it out. If you want to learn more about what I mean by timings, go check out Coach Spilo's Sombra May breakdown. Fantastic example of how Atlanta is just like that much farther ahead when it comes to Sombra. Yeah. They're the way that they play that matchup in specifically the Brawl Mirror, really, really like some high tier shit. And you can kind of see that across the board, like very, very tight, crispy. Everybody's on the same page 90% of the time. I don't think anybody else is that close. So yeah, I don't hate a 3-0. I don't hate a 3-1. Anything more than that, you're cat.
Yeah. Next one. Okay, this is a spicy meatball here, right here.
Okay.
You might not think that, but I think this is a 3-2 mayhem.
You gotta sell me on how the hell Shock, a team who drops maps to the Valiant, is taking 2 versus Florida.
This is also so cap, dude. Like, yeah, you can like drop maps to shit teams based. Yeah,
is that not like a metric though? Like, I feel like there is something to like cleanly putting people away. No,
there's something to still getting the job done, right? And like,
I mean, yes, they got the job done.
Who also
you can't
drops
take that away
shitloads of maps? Shanghai Dragons Season 4. They actually had to reverse sweep so many times. It's incredible. Even against
that's true. That is true, especially early on.
Yeah,
that's a little bit different, but I see what you're saying.
I think also shock probably plays up to the level of the opponent more. There is a slight upwards trajectory, even though maybe not as much as you would love to see from this team.
I feel like that's such cope, dude. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. So
best I could do is a 3-1. I think maybe if there is some changes coming down the pipe and it is positive and the morale, like the locker room's buying back in, maybe I'm more open to it. But I don't know. Apparently, this Chris Chung interview's gotta have some heat to it. But I just can't see a 3-2.
Yeah, I'm not as Rayman myself again. You gotta watch that shit. It's an hour 10 minutes. It's true. Yeah. Yeah, 3-2. Outlaws Titans. No reason for me to believe this is going to go much differently than the Titans Gladiator series. I'm also going 3-1.
Yeah, I'll go 3-1, maybe even a 3-0. I think as much as I'm like a Vancouver homer, Houston.
Yeah,
they're kind of hot.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Punk, but like if you're forced on Winston, you have a problem against Phyllis.
It's true. They'll probably they'll try to not have to have that happen. Here's the attack vector if Vancouver wins. Here's my Vancouver cope, okay?
Here we go.
I need to see the punker queen. We need the punker queen and we need some tank hate. If we can ask the question that Mayhem is likely going to ask them anyways, so this probably is a moot point, but you have to start asking Fearless to do other stuff. And that's how we saw Dallas trip up early last season, right? Versus, funnily enough, the Houston Outlaws, right? You remember that, I think it was that Dorado. Remember like the season opener? Yeah, versus on Dorado. Here comes Pelican on Farah.
Yeah.
Fearless can't play Diva or match, and they get booty blasted, right?
Yep.
I need to see something like that out of Vancouver. I need to see some counter comping. Sure. I think this is going to be a big week for Houston. I think they're coming down 2 teams that are probably prepping for them real hard.
Yep.
We'll see what happens. I think Houston should be winning this game very clean, easy clap. See you next week. 2-0 week for them.
Yeah.
They're going to go through the ringer. I think both of these teams are going to prep real hard for them.
Sure.
I'll still pret them, but that's how either Florida or Vancouver wins versus Houston. You have to leverage Fearless.
Yeah, sure.
I don't think you can kind of like just write off Happy as like this hit scan, one trick at this point. As Sombra looks fantastic. The timing, the way that he kind of plays it was very interesting versus Atlanta. I previously talked about how it felt like he was kind of like doing a lot of scouting. He was very informed on like where Lip was placing his stuff. Maybe had more to do with like individual study on like the best Sombra to ever touch the game. So maybe that was more of that, but yeah, it's a tough one. There's not too many ways to find weak points in the armor of the Houston Outlaws, but the one that you could comes down to the Winston player. So that's the only way.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I think has Titans played Mayhem yet? I don't think so, right? That's cool.
Yeah, week 1. 3-1 Mayhem.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's actually probably pretty good that it was this early. I'm not sure how it would go now.
Yeah, unironically. I think Vancouver is kind of finding their footing with the meta. I think there was still some like shaky knees when it came out of Pro-Am. I think they didn't the one thing out of Pro-Am that I was really worried about with Vancouver is if we are walking into a Sombra meta and they want to keep playing Aspire, we need to get better real quick because that kid was just dead 3 fights in a row, 3 fights first, right? Like that was not good. And Sugar Free looks like he's going to be the go-to guy, at least on some comps, some maps. And they've shown that Punk can kind of play. The meta is a lot more diverse than just, one trick Winston and AFK. Like, you can do a lot of stuff, and I think that's going to lend itself to Punk's attributes. So we'll see.
For sure. Next match, Toronto Eternal. Slap.
3-0. See ya.
Later. Yep. Gladiators Justice.
I'll say 3-1. 3-1 Glads.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. Once again, in the Titans Glads zone.
Yeah.
I think it would also probably could even be a 3-0, to be honest.
Yeah, could be. Depends on it. Again, it depends on what Gladiators showed up. I think it's a safe bet to say they win, but if they don't high roll, I think maybe Alpha E in Florida, they have some room. If they got some room to make a play or two and could drag Justice across the line, I think they could be kind of close on a map, and only a map.
I agree. No, Joe.
No, stop it.
This is my crackpot.
Yeah, apparently it is a crackpot, Pred. This is not. Don't do it. You're gonna change this. After the shot gets blown out by Florida, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, no, we gotta.
Oh yeah,
we gotta
dude. If that happens, I'm like, woo, I'm jumping onto the next.
Dodged a quick one. All right.
I'm like one of those Zuma videos on TikTok where like the little guy has to jump over the trains and collect the coins. I'm jumping to the next train, buddy. Like, fucking hell. For now, I have it 3-1 for no particular reason other than that Chris Chung interview is something you gotta watch. Which way? Chalk. I'm selling the shit out of this interview, dude. Base.
Apparently, you need to see Chris Chung's interview with Yiska because he is writing.
Have I told you
the sky.
They just moved into heaven.
I am in heaven now.
I'm in heaven. Yeah, godly ambrosia for food.
I can't. There's no way.
Telekinesis as internet connection is crazy. It's actually fucking nuts.
Yeah,
free massages.
You could tell me that these
proper
kids
clone kits.
They could all have gotten a salary raise and have the finest, silk sheets, and their Conor McGregor lifestyle living now. Somehow that needs to show up in that Mayhem game for this to be remotely close. I think both of these games, like I said, I don't have Shock getting a map. I think these are both 3-0s. I don't think it's particularly close.
That is crazy.
Maybe that changes. Maybe whatever is happening shows up versus Florida, and I eat some crow. I eat a shoe. You know what? Shocker back. Here we go. We're going to midseason. We're getting the team that was promised finally. But I need to see something, and I need to see it soon.
Dude, okay, I'll give you this much. There is a situation where I'm sitting there and I'm getting past the proverbial blunt by Krusty. Okay.
You're telling me you're in Krusty's blunt rotation?
This is my starting roster. Okay, that's what's happening. Okay.
Yeah, and that to me is not a good thing. That to me is something we've seen throughout this league's history, and you know what it's given me? Shit. It's never been good. Nobody's ever done that and found success.
Yeah, sure.
And I don't think you're going to get it now versus two potentially
other than,
top 5 teams.
Outlaws.
What?
With Dante.
Fair. Okay, I'll give you that one.
There's some crackpipe shit that just sometimes works. Right?
It's true. I think being,
Super
the logic
games on Genji, right?
Sure, bud. Sure. I didn't know we were getting the start to a Lil Wayne album, but you know what? I guess I'm here for it.
Yeah, and then also, of course, like the other part of that of the blunt rotation is also like what's going on with Boston, which is totally cope. I'm coping so hard. Holy shit! It's actually it's actually not Krusty's. I just need points to pick up. Maybe I'm also just completely bullshitting the people that are like ahead of me and trying to get them to pride something. I'll just say Scrimbucks and go 3-1 shock until 5 minutes before the Preds lock in, and I woo.
He's that little sweaty nerd in TFT that like swaps the board on you right before you play, and you get your carry hooked, and you're just like, damn, I got marketplace. That's crazy.
You don't even know, dude. Like I had spreadsheets for Among Us. Okay, like
it's true. He did. He wasn't wrong, to be fair. Weirdly, he found some hits. So yeah. I'm not mad at that. Not mad at that. What I'm mad at is how that somehow is conflating with what the universe tells him. That's where I think Yiska just, where the chosen one falls. He knows what he should do, but then the universe tells him to do the opposite. And then he believes him. He believes the universe. He believes the Scrimbucks and his journey to the top comes from his own merits.
You know me, Joe. I just believe in people, Oh,
I'm so glad you could say that.
Yeah. Fucking hell.
Too funny. All right, last one before we get out of here. Vancouver, New York. 3-1 Vancouver.
3-1. Oh.
You were
so antsy to give like folks a map or a clean sweep before, and now it's like a really?
I think it probably should be a 3-0. I'm not so sure on some of these. Again,
are you winning the Lord bet this hard that you're fine just giving maps away against Titans now? Are you already? Have you started styling on me?
This is my victory, parade. Like I'm already. I feel very confident.
I hope we get a ball meta like second half. Fuck. Someone you like just I don't know, ball sim Torb or some shit. Like just decide that the ball player decides to match, and then like I don't know. Like, hopefully Punk doesn't have one.
I mean, that's where we're coming down to, right? Or it's just like, you can't hate this back line now.
Yeah.
You can't hate the DPS line now.
Yeah.
You just got to try to leverage Punk.
Yeah. Oh.
And
see?
Lo and behold.
Oh, Papa Punk, you hear this? Your son is the Achilles heel in the Lord bet. That's what Joe just said.
I mean, yes, that's probably what it always was going to come down to. But even then, I don't think it's like a hindrance.
Enjoy your Twitter notifications.
That's fine. Me and Papa Punk, we're like this, dude. We're on the same page.
Your blunt rotation?
I might just be going to Thanksgiving at this point. You know what I mean? Like that doesn't make any sense, but whatever.
That does.
They're Australian.
Does Australia even have Thanksgiving?
I don't know. Maybe.
What would Australians be thankful for, Joe?
I don't know.
Having survived the fucking hellscape.
Surviving the snake that's under their house.
Thank you, Father, for we have not been bitten by black widows.
Yeah, right.
Based.
Oh, man, that's so funny. It was a figure of speech. Hopefully people understand that.
Sure.
That's funny. I think people are starting to wisen up to Vancouver just being a good team, and there's not much other than maybe Punk's hero pool, which again we're seeing him find footing in the meta that a few of our community members were just like, yeah, I give it 2 weeks before everybody's playing Winston. It's like we're week 5 and you can get away with playing 0 Winston. And some of the best teams are just not playing a lot of Winston, right? Atlanta's still running a lot of Diva.
I'll tell you straight up, like, if the second half of the season is a Sigma meta and, like, Punk can shine, I'm just, like, calling bullshit. That would be...
Bullshit on what? What's bullshit about it?
I don't know.
That the universe conspired against you?
Yeah, what's bullshit about the league winners moving to a different region? What is bullshit about the Valiant coming over? To give to the poor a couple of wins and upgrades in the rankings. What is bullshit about the San Francisco Shock with the O2 roster shitting their bed? What is bullshit about the Toronto Defiant, American Tornado feeding the homeless? Like, it's crazy, okay? This, like, the universe is conspiring against me. I'm not sure this isn't a simulation anymore. Okay.
Here, I'll
yeah.
Here, I'll pass it back with this one.
Yeah.
I think the Titans beat the Dallas Fuel right now.
I'm smoking that one. I think you might be right.
I think I'm right too.
I hate this.
Oh no.
Dude, like
that's where I'm at, where I'm like, bro, I don't know if it matters where like Dallas plays right now. They're just kind of not great.
Dude, this universe is so fucking weird. Like, I expect, like, I don't know, do I need to sniff my jogging socks in order to escape into the next alternate reality because we're kept in fucking everything everywhere all at once 2.0? Like, this is what is going on? How am I losing this fucking Lord Ben? This is stupid, dude. This is fucking insane.
I mean, there is another half to the season. You know, we will have to see what that looks like. But yeah, no, I feel pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm very thankful that I didn't bet on Atlanta Toronto, because anybody who followed us from the preseason will know that was pretty close. I won't lie. I was pretty bullish on the Toronto Defiant, and clean my hands with them now. We're on to Vancouver. We're on to the other Canadian team, funnily enough.
Dude, that second half of the season better developed. Like deliver. Jesus Christ. Yeah, this is man. Yeah.
I mean, you gotta hope for this patch, you know? If we were to roll it on Punker Queen, eesh. I might just be a wrap.
That's arguably I was lucky that I'm a big fan of that ruling, by the way. Also, like, let's be honest, like, it would have absolutely sucked to kill this meta diversity that we're currently having off for 100%. The sake of just like 100% Junker Queen. But I don't know. Definitely that would have been, because I think like Punker Queen, one of the better ones in the league for sure.
I'd say so. I mean, yeah, that's where it's like, okay, if Dallas come back for whatever, like in this mystical realm, then okay, yeah, maybe Vancouver, maybe we need to revisit that head to head, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like Glads, maybe Dante, maybe Hawk.
Yeah.
Hottie, maybe. Outside of that, we're stretching for somebody who can play Queen pretty well, right? Like,
sure.
Punk's pretty good. Punk's pretty good. All right, Reds are done. Review's done. We know what's coming down the pipeline for Yiska. Anything else we got coming up?
I am keeping the wave riding. I'm just going to monkey bar from narrative point to narrative point until someone doesn't want to provide. I have another interview locked in, allegedly on Monday, with another main character of the Overwatch League, I would say. And then, you know, knocking on the door for the Mayhem, knocking on the door for maybe I should probably knock on the door for Glads again. So we'll see. We'll see.
All right. I've got some interview questions with a certain Vice City team coming up. Hopefully that'll be hitting your inboxes maybe next week, early next week. Won't speak too much on it, just because I tend to curse things. Other than that, I gotta find my editing software. I gotta figure that out.
Sure.
Other than that, yeah, no, just trying to get a good feel for what's coming up. Might have a project or two brewing for mid-season. We'll see. Gotta figure out what we're doing for episode 300, which is coming up way quicker than I kind of expected.
True.
Days be flying. But yeah, no, I think that's it for us. A little quick one. Hopefully this was satiating. Sure. Hopefully this satiated you. I don't know. Whatever. Anyways,
or you got
289 in the books. Yeah, you probably ended this episode with some munchies. We probably gave you a contact high with all the absolute drogas we were smoking. So, whatever. 289. We love you. Like and subscribe. Be good to one another. See ya.
Peace and love.